Hello and welcome back to the Spotlight Games podcast. I'm your host, Patrick. And this week, it's about to get spicy, my friends. We're talking about Zelda Tears of the Kingdom. We're talking about a new Elden Ring DLC announcement. And we're going to get spicy. And when I say spicy, I mean spicy. When we create the definitive top 10 best games of our childhood. Whose childhood? Whoever's here, me, Cayman, we all had a different childhood, but we're about to put together the list of the best 10 games from that childhood, and it's gonna be a bloodbath, Cayman. But joining me as always is my sweet, spicy dumpster boy, Cayman Darty. Cayman, how are you?
Oh man, I've got an ice bath ready for me because I know that I'm gonna be sore as hell after this episode's done because I know I'm gonna get beat around. I'm gonna take a punishment.
Yeah.
Because trust me, I got some spicy games that I'm bringing up from my childhood and repressed memories. They could potentially come out too. So I might need some tissues as well.
Oh, yeah. I mean, here's the thing. We already got folks in the chat popping off. We got Connie in the chat getting on her laptop for this. We got Terry in the chat. It's like, I mean, I think this is the quickest the chat's ever popped off on an episode of Spotlight Games. So we're about to it's going to get spicy. We have a lot of video game stuff to talk about because this is the Spotlight Games podcast where each week we spotlight the latest and the greatest in the world of video games. You can get it by subscribing to our YouTube channel at Spotlight Games Pod or by searching for Spotlight Games in your favorite podcast app. And hey, you can be on the show by tuning in as we record live Tuesdays at 8 p.m. Eastern time on twitch.tv/Spotlight Games Pod. So be sure to follow us there so that you're notified when we go live so you can be part of the conversation or you can be part of the bloodbath that we're about to have today. I wanted to use today's housekeeping as a little call to action, Cayman. This is something that you've not heard about, but I wanted to throw out there into the ether of our audience, into our viewership and our listenership. If there is anyone out there that you've been, you listen to the show, you watch the show, or you watch and listen to other podcasts, and you've thought about maybe dipping your toe into like editing, video editing, things like that. If there's anyone out there that like is interested in learning and or honing their craft, email me, mail@spotlightgames.net, or if you know my personal email or my phone number, text me, because I have ambitions for this podcast. And the truth is, Cayman, I don't have the time in the day to do all those ambitions.
Yeah, bro.
I want to see if there's anyone out there who is interested and has the time to help us out a little bit. Again, if you're interested, like this is not don't feel bad for me and like just to help. This is if there's something that is of interest to you, let me know because I could surely use the help and I wouldn't say no to it. Cayman.
Yes.
This today, as of recording, the 28th of February, new episode of Save Trash Center, the podcast is out. Tell the folks at home about it.
Yeah, so we got a new episode of STC out right now. We are covering the 1985 Jean-Claude Van Damme, what we consider the Van Damme-assance. I think we covered that on the show. Or maybe that was pre-show. It doesn't fucking matter. Guess what? We got karate. We got the ghost of Bruce Lee. We've got breakdancing, and we got trash cinema. So I don't really know if there's any call to action that needs to take place after I said that entire word salad. The episode's a ton of fun. As always, we are just a rip-roaring good time. It goes off rails pretty much 30 seconds into the episode.
Yeah.
It goes off rails. So
it is, if you are someone who you listen to Save Trash Cinema and maybe you don't like always watch the movie, maybe you just like to hear our banter, watch the movie. This is, I think, my favorite movie we've ever covered on Save Trash Cinema. It was a fucking blast. So it's free on YouTube. Yeah. Like it's a really, if you're looking for true trash cinema, this is, in my opinion, the best of the best so far.
This is a Bruce-sploitation film. If you don't know what that means, go look up what that means. It makes way more sense once you find out what that is. And this is very much like, this is peak like kung fu trash cinema.
It's awesome.
And I mean, I think this is exactly what the show was designed for, was to cover movies just like this. So like, what else is there to say?
Yeah, head on over to your podcast app because that one is not on YouTube or Twitch
No.
to download that episode. Out now, buy now, download now. We also have a new episode of Spotlight TV, which you can tune in live on Mondays at 8 Eastern on twitch.tv/Spotlight Games Pod of a deep dive of episode 7, Left Behind of The Last of Us. Episode 8, we will be discussing at the end of this show. For those of you that have been in the live chat with us and following along and watching the show with us, we're going to do our spoiler-filled predictions for next week's episode at the end of the show. So if that is of interest to you, stick around to the very end. But we have a lot to get to. So why don't we jump into opening the show how we always open the show, which is with what we're playing. I do have a little bit to report this week, Cayman, but I'm curious to hear what you've been playing since last episode with our special guest of last week.
Yep, still doing the same game from last week.
Word.
Yep, just I don't know. Like it's just as Patrick said before, we have very little time, and I am 32 hours into this game. So
yeah.
But
you're still enjoying your time with it.
Yeah, no. Yeah, I'm enjoying the game a lot. For those who weren't there last week, I am indeed playing the Wizard game. I know. If you want to hear my thoughts more in depth on the reasoning and all of that, go listen to last week's episode. I go kind of a deep dive on my thought process leading into it, and how I came to my decisions based around that. But yeah, I think ultimately though, if you set aside everything else about it, like the truth of the matter is, this is a really good game. Like this team built a really good game out of what they were given, and I think that they made a lot of really positive strides considering that. And if you want to know more, like just hit me up on the side. I can kind of explain that. I don't want to deep dive too much because I did a pretty big deep dive last episode. Sure. So, but you, Patrick, apparently started a new game.
Yeah. So
I'm curious about this.
We've seen a lot. We've seen a lot. We've talked about a little on the podcast when it's been announced and kind of shown at various showcases. A little indie game called Blanc on the Switch. Do you remember this?
Shit. Yeah.
So this is if you don't remember. Actually, I'll pull up a quick little share of it for our video watchers to kind of remind you what game I'm talking about. This game, it is on the Switch. I think it might also be on the PC, but right now I believe it is only on, in terms of console, only on Switch. But you play as either a little fox or a little deer. And it can also be 2-player. So I'm playing with my beautiful wife, Rose. I am the deer. She is the fox. If you know Rose, that makes sense. She's a big fox fan. It's her favorite animal. And if you play solo, to my understanding, you control them both, like with each stick. But, very light impressions to start. We played about 30 minutes earlier tonight, but apparently it's a very short game. It's like 2 or 3 hours long. So we've played a large chunk of what the game has to offer already, even though we've only spent about 30 minutes with it. But it's a little like journey of discovery, and like there doesn't seem to be any dialogue at all, obviously because they're animals.
Sure.
What I've gathered of the story is that like you're trying to find something or someone to you, and it is already. It's incredibly adorable. Controls so far, I'll be honest, in 30 minutes, a little wonky.
Okay.
But it's the kind of thing where like this is the kind of game that I can be very forgiving of that because one, I get to share it with somebody, and two, really small team, really small experience. Like I understand it might not feel like the smoothest game I've ever played, but it's only like 15 or 20 bucks on Switch. If this is of interest to you, check back next week. By next week, we should have finished it. We'll probably finish it in the next couple of days if we have the time to, but so far I am impressed so far. I'm not disappointed, to say the least, with what we've played so far. So
hell yeah,
we'll be playing a little bit more of it. But yeah, if Terry in the chat, the game looks fun, and I'm glad I'm getting some firsthand information. Yeah, like I hadn't really seen many people talking about it. I just remember seeing the trailers and being really interested by it. So like, I don't think any of the major sites like did reviews for it that I saw. Might be just a little too small for that, but yeah, check it out. Or come back next week and we'll talk a little bit more about it. Cayman, speaking of Terry in the chat, friend of the show, he sent us a message on Instagram, which you can do. Our Instagram is Spotlight GameSpot.
Have I ever done that?
Well, capital U, the people you can do. I feel like you've probably sent us an Instagram message before. You've sent yourself an Instagram message as came into Spotlight Games. You naughty boy.
Probably, yes.
But he sent over a message that got my mind a spinning, got my wheels a turning, my fires a burning about a little game coming out later this year, Zelda Tears or Tears. We've still not heard it said.
Tears
of the Kingdom. Terry wrote and said, I know we're not seeing a lot of gameplay from Tears of the Kingdom.
Tears.
Do we think there's any possibility? Yes, excuse me. Let me start over. I know we're not seeing a lot of gameplay from Tears of the Kingdom.
Thank you.
Do we think there's any possibility that we play as Zelda for a significant portion of the game? Or is that out of the question? It'd be wild if that was the secret they kept this whole time. Because Terry kind of mentions or kind of alludes to with the last thing he says there. I feel like they're being very close to the chest. There is going to be something about this game. There's often something about a Zelda game. They're like that, something that is different than games past, something that is bigger or newer. Sometimes they're very loud about it. Like with Breath of the Wild, they were very clear that like it's very much about like exploration forward and like you're cooking, you're exploring, you're climbing, like you have stamina now. Like they were very upfront about how the game was being changed. Or like you go back to Wind Waker, first time that the game was taking place like in the sea, like that. And they were very forward about that. This game, I feel like they're just making it seem like it is another Breath of the Wild, but it won't just be another Breath of the Wild. And so I like where Terry's head is at here, that there might be something, but Cayman, I'm throwing it to you. Do you think that we might play as Zelda in this game?
You know, honestly, I don't see why not. To be completely honest with you, I don't see why we wouldn't be able to. At least if we're not playing as Zelda, maybe Sheik.
Okay.
We get the ninja version of Zelda. Like I'm down with that too. But like to your point, you are correct that every time they've released like the next big Zelda game, right? They've always followed it up with like huge showcases on like all these new features or the new designs or whatever. And in this one, they aren't
yet. And the game comes out in 3 months, less than 3 months.
Part of me is like, I wonder if the reason they're not doing that is because it's not going to be a huge leap, which don't get me wrong. I don't think is necessarily a bad thing. I think for all intents and purposes, everyone loved Breath of the Wild. So like, don't fix what isn't broken kind of mentality. But like, I don't know, part of me is kind of leaning towards like, there might be a chance that this game isn't a huge departure from what Breath of the Wild was. I think what we've seen so far is it does look yes. Tina, I understand. I was not like I have my qualms with Breath of the Wild.
Now you don't like fun games, but continue.
Yes, fair. But like I think what that we have seen so far is they've definitely been like it's going to be more vertical in terms of that.
That is like the one little bit that they've showed us, is that it seems to be taking place in the sky a bit.
Yeah, so like I think that's the big question is like, is that going to be the big thing? Like it's going to be pretty much the same game. The difference is you're going to have more verticality on how you explore. Instead of it being like a vast open world that is horizontal, it's going to be a vast open world that's vertical, which is a really cool concept to kind of explore. So yeah, I don't know. Like, but I do think like, I mean, there's no reason why we couldn't play as Sheik or play as Zelda. Like, I think that that'd be really cool. But at the same time, too, like, I don't think that that would have worked in Breath of the Wild. Like, I don't know if that works in Breath of the Wild. You know what I mean? Like, since it's not segmented in a way that, like, permits that, unless it's potentially, like a game where it's like, oh, for the next, like, I don't know, out, like, almost like Spider-Man did when it came out on PlayStation 4, where it was like, you're going to have missions where you're going to play as Mary Jane. And don't get me wrong, those missions sucked. Not because it was Mary Jane. Those missions just weren't very fun because they were stealth, like mandatory stealth. And if you got caught, you were just busted. You just couldn't
A-
like fight your
and
way out.
and there were a couple missions as Miles Morales, remember? And it was the
True.
same concept where like it's
Yeah.
like stealthy. It's like this is just not
Yeah, it
fun.
just didn't fit for that. So like I don't think maybe Breath of the Wild necessarily that could work for that, but I do think that like you could potentially have a situation or setup where like certain dungeons or certain chapters you were forced into playing. I think that's the only way you can do it though, is if you're forced into it and that's it.
What if? I have a
Okay.
bit of a crazy theory here.
Link is nude.
And no, like this is not a bit. Ever since you said like, what if it's Tears of the Kingdom? I've legitimately wondered if this is true, and it makes me think and wonder because time is a huge component in Zelda games. It always has been. It probably always will be. What if significant portions of this game take place in a different time period? And what if you don't play as Zelda, but what if you play as a different Link?
Oh, okay. So the reason
Or
why
if
they
they
haven't
wanted to
said
get fucking nuts, was what if you played as like Ganon before he went evil?
oh, dude, that would be okay.
That'd be fucking cool. Like
That'd be fucking
if
cool.
but like I think it'd be pretty cool if part of this, like something that makes the game feel super different, is that you can like jump between time periods, because like they played a little bit with time. I think I want to say it was Wind Waker.
Mhm.
There were where like you would go to like old Hyrule,
Mhm.
and but it was like very specific portions of the game. So like if they expanded on that and made it to where almost like in a weird way like GTA 5, where at that in that game you could jump around between the protagonists. Like what if after a certain point in the game you can, like, part of the puzzles is like going to a different time period in Hyrule through a tear of the kingdom. Anyway.
You know, honestly, dude, I think you just made a really good game. I don't think that's what we're getting because I don't think the Switch's hardware could hold up to that. But
I
honestly,
think it'd be pretty
dude,
fucking cool.
honestly, like I think that's amazing idea though to be able to like the tears of the
The
kingdom,
tears.
tears of the kingdom, and then you do or like they kind of do like Rift Apart where like you could jump into like a time rift and like
Sure.
you and then like whatever you and then you pop up and you're playing as like a different Link or you're playing as like Zelda or Sheik or someone else
Yeah.
from the universe or even like a pre-evil Ganondorf would be fucking dope.
Or even an evil Ganondorf, but like Tony's a Zelda game, but you just manage the kingdom's recession. That's good. And then this is a really fun idea too. Like, what if in some, I don't know that they would make you just like play an old game specifically, but like, what if it takes you to the time period of, and maybe this is what you mean, and I'm just being dense, but if it like puts you in like the Wind Waker timeline and you're like within the Wind Waker world as Tears of the Kingdom Zelda or Link, Tears of the Kingdom Link. I don't know. I think it's a really fucking cool idea. Okay, yeah, that is what Connie meant. Like that'd be really cool. Like if you could go to a different Zelda game world, like even if they like kept like in some capacity like the graphical style. I don't know. That'd be fucking cool. It's probably not even close to that. Like this is just big dreaming, but Terry got me thinking, and I thought that was a pretty cool idea. But we'll see. I hope that there is something like that, whether it's playing as Zelda, Sheik. You're not going to play as Ganon, but like it would be cool if there was something that they are able to keep close to the chest until release, like going back to Metal Gear Solid 2, which is a game we might be talking about later, where you just assume you're playing as Solid Snake the whole time, and then like an hour into the game you play the entire game as a different character.
Yeah.
But yeah, the Raiden reveal, yeah, Tony, like it's one of those things you can't really recreate, but like I don't know, might be cool. We'll see.